All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Civics 201 breakout session. This is Homeless and ATX, Policy Solutions to Help Our Neighbors. My name is Tori Vogel. I'm a member of the Austin Young Chamber, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you today our wonderful session moderator and panelists. Moderating today's session, we have the Chief Programs Officer of Caritas of Austin, so Adelita Winchester. Adelita is a senior leader that helps guide this important organization in their mission to prevent and end homelessness in the greater Austin community. Welcome. Our panelists today include Assistant City Manager Chris Shorter and ECHO's Director of Community Housing, Bree Williams. In his role as Assistant City Manager, Chris Shorter oversees the health and environment and culture and lifelong learning outcomes for Austin. As Director of Community Housing for ECHO, which stands for Ending Community Homelessness Coalition, Bree Williams has spent many years promoting solutions in the community. We are very excited for the expertise and viewpoints of our panelists. So without further ado, Adelita, please take it away.
Well, thank you, Tori. I'm excited to be here today to talk more about policy solutions and what we can use and do to prevent and eliminate homelessness in our community alongside our esteemed panelists today. Chris and Bree actually have a lot of knowledge on this issue from their respective positions, and I think you will all find their input informative and interesting. So if everyone's ready, we can go ahead and kick off the questions. Please note that if you have questions, use the Q&A box, and we'll answer the questions at the end if we have time. That's for our guests who are here. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question for both of you or either of you is, how does the city collaborate with nonprofits or local organizations to help drive change?
I guess I'll start. I'm not sure Chris has made it to the table yet. So I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having us here today. We're so excited about opportunities to speak to the broader community around solutions and messages around ending homelessness. But to Adelita's question, I will speak from ECHO's perspective. So ECHO, we're considered the lead continuum of care agency for Austin Travis County. And what that means is that we have been charged with, along with our partners of the city of Austin, of creating and coordinating a homeless response system. And that is not done alone. So we work very closely with Adelita's organization, Caritas of Austin, with Front Steps, with Salvation Army, with the Safe Alliance, with Trinity Center, Sunrise, and coalescing around one shared mission, which is ending homelessness, and coordinate that response to have the most effective system we can.
Okay. Has Chris made it on yet? Okay. Bree, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay. Hello? Okay. So we'll move on to the next question, which is, what are some of the most significant policies we have in Austin to address homelessness? And what were the outcomes of some of those policies? For instance, focusing on housing first, issues such as camping ordinances. What would you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll definitely hand it over to Chris once he finds his way to the table. So first, talking about housing first and really just unpacking for the group what that means. So housing first is essentially the philosophical foundation of all of the work and approach to ending homelessness in Austin. And that has been formally adopted by the city of Austin and by essentially every service provider in our community. And it's the understanding that the first intervention that we need to offer folks experiencing homelessness is permanent housing. Housing is a basic need, and folks are living in a crisis response system until they have housing. So it's offered without barrier or without preconditions. There's some really amazing research coming out of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, which helps guide the national movement. And housing first programs are between 75 and 98% effective long term. And that's for extremely vulnerable folks who've been experiencing homelessness a very long time. Housing first programs and policies also dramatically decrease the use of the emergency response system, including, emergency shelters, hospitals, and jails. And all in all, actually, it's an amazing cost savings approach because those systems are very expensive. Yeah. And I can move on from housing first.
Experiencing homelessness has been absolutely. We hear stories from across the country of how devastating those who are experiencing homelessness. This experience of dealing with COVID and the closure of what have traditionally been their natural places to get basic needs and services. And then separately, some of the longer term and strategic ways that we work with partners is also pretty amazing. So in terms of COVID, I will say back in March, when we really as a country and certainly as a city began to deal with in a real way the reality of COVID-19 and the intersection of homelessness, there was a bit of a panic in that many of the recreation centers and libraries and businesses, especially in and around downtown, were closed. And so the place where folks would go to wash their hands or to wash their clothes or to use the restroom or to take showers, that all of those basic, or to get food, all of those basic needs were no longer there. So I will say that I am extremely proud of the work of our community of service providers and partners and funders and city staff who pulled together to really raise up services for our population of those who are experiencing homelessness. And in that, we stood up protective lodges that are still stood up. Over 350 individuals are being served currently. We also stood up a host of other services, including hand washing stations and others. Separate from that, I will say that in terms of the work that ECHO and many of our other service providers do every day in the community and for our homeless population, if we were not working together, and I will also say that during this pandemic, we've also been doing quite a bit of work to strategically align our system. And so we have had a team of consultants led by Barbara Poppy and Matt Doherty, who have both worked under the Obama administration federally with a number of communities, have been here studying our system and have come out with a report and really an assessment of our homeless service system here in Austin. And with that, we have developed a project management team structure that really brings in a lot of our partners to talk about and deal with real-time actions around how we move forward throughout this pandemic. We've also are starting to build a sort of what we call P3 team of leaders from the service provider community that are focused on rapid rehousing, diversion, prevention, emergency shelter, and other housing options. So that to say, part of what I heard before I cut out was this sort of focus from a policy perspective on housing first. And I will say that without our partners leaned in and working together as a system, that our approach, our model here in Austin would be impossible. So we have a strong community here of providers. And as we begin to grow our ability as a system to work together, it makes us that much more powerful and able to deal with the challenge of those who are experiencing homelessness and getting them stabilized and into housing.
Okay. And what we were talking about as we were trying to ramp you back up, Chris, is what would the two of you say are national best practices to end and prevent homelessness?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of best practice, it's ensuring that homelessness is rare, and when it isn't rare, that we are ensuring that it's brief, and when for whatever reason it isn't. Well, I'll say it this way. Once we get a family or an individual who is experiencing homelessness into shelter or some housing option, that they are not falling back into homelessness, that this idea of rare, brief, non-recurring is a best practice in itself. And so designing a homeless response system here in Austin that allows for that kind of movement of individuals where we're able to respond and divert and prevent homelessness, so prevent folks from entering the system. But when they do enter the system, that experience is rare and non-recurring once we stabilize.
I would agree that that's a shared vision and mission that we have. Absolutely. The rare and non-recurring must have that. Yes. Anything you'd want to add, Bree?
I think that was beautiful, obviously, Chris. I think, additionally, especially looking at preventing homelessness, and I think I would love to talk at some point today about the upcoming potential eviction crisis and what we can ask folks to do to help us address that. But I think as a community, and we're taking significant steps in this direction of really investing in affordable housing and increasing the affordable housing stock. We all know that we're having an affordability crisis in Austin, as every large city is. And that really puts people in a very precarious situation financially. And I think also working with our other system partners, with the foster care system, with the juvenile justice system, with the criminal justice system, and systems that have a kind of a direct pathway into homelessness for some folks, not all, and building that coalition that we have built among the homeless response system and bringing them in. So we've taken a lot of steps as a community. We have more to take, but I think that is a huge piece of it too.
Okay, thank you.
Also add a unique program here in Austin is the Workforce First program, where we are essentially paying individuals who are experiencing homelessness currently a 15 per hour salary to do activities and services that we need. We hear often of the need for individuals to find some sort of stable way of earning a living. And I always like to brag about and talk about that program, that partnership with the Other Ones Foundation. It is really a bright light in our community in terms of best practice and in terms of sort of work that we should be proud of and can be proud of.
How can we make sure that policies and initiatives are equitable to support those experiencing homelessness?
Ensuring equity is first the need to be honest about what is happening in our community, and the fact that a overwhelmingly disproportionate population of those who are experiencing homelessness are people of color, specifically African American, and the need to design our coordinated entry system to appreciate that fact, and to design solutions that are also focused on the differences between these various ethnic groups. So how we serve those populations, ensuring that there are leaders on the boards and in upper management of the organizations that serve this population of homeless is critically important. And I think there's work to do here in the city on that and on that fact. I will say that there has been, and I believe the COC did vote recently to enhance the coordinated entry system. I should say, add an equity tool to the coordinated entry system. And in that way, we hope to see some pretty significant results in terms of those who are experiencing homelessness and also experiencing other challenges with our systems, whether it's criminal justice, juvenile justice, child welfare, and others, that we are able to align our coordinated entry and get them help more quickly.
Anything you'd want to add, Bree?
I want to agree with everything Chris just said. And also, I think I really appreciated Chris framing it around really being honest, because I think we want to ground and center all of our work in an equity lens, and then that needs to be actionized, right? That needs to be, and so to Chris's point, looking at our systems, another piece of the work I think is, how do we bring folks with lived expertise into decision-making rooms, and into, to Chris's point too, like our boards and guiding our policy change. They are the experts in ending homelessness, folks who have experienced it or still are experiencing it. Another piece that I know is really important to echo the city as well is looking at our outcomes. Like, are we serving people equitably? Is there a certain group of folks that are not succeeding at the same rate? And really kind of challenging ourselves and our programs and our interventions to be sure we're also being equitable. So yeah, there's so much work to be done in that space.
Okay, thank you. What would you say are some of the common misconceptions you hear about the experience of homelessness or the proposed solutions?
I'll go back and forth with Bree on this one. I feel like a huge misconception is one that we will see very directly in the coming months, and that is folks who have not had the threat of being without a home. We will see more folks experiencing that threat in the coming months due to COVID and the recovery and much of the policy that is keeping folks in their home, eviction stoppage and that sort is at some point going to sunset. And so we really, as a community, need to understand that, and you can almost see it even now in Austin, where you see folks who are experiencing homelessness in encampments with with plants and stuff that you can believe were in someone's home just a month ago or just a few weeks ago. And so folks are who may believe that someone who's experiencing homelessness is lazy, or that they aren't doing what they should to get out of that situation. I'm here to tell you firsthand that is just not the case. And we need to make sure that we understand that the systems that work for some don't work for all. And it results in some cases in folks, families and individuals being chronically homeless and or experiencing a temporary homeless situation. A very big misconception, I think.
I completely agree. Homelessness is not a result of an individual failure. If anything, I would argue it's a result of system failures. And to Chris's point, as we look to the eviction moratoriums lifting and what that's going to mean for our community, I think we need to be really honest with ourselves that there are a lot of folks who have never experienced homelessness before that, but for this community rallying around and coming together and find solutions, might experience homelessness for the first time. And, I'll share my work at Echo is primarily with the rental industry and with partners in that world. And we see it firsthand, what's happening and what's coming around the corner. And so I appreciate the way you frame that, Chris, because I think, unfortunately, the truth is going to manifest in a way that folks have never seen before. And I would love to find a solution where we don't see that become a reality and these folks don't enter homelessness for the first time, because it's not a result of laziness or individual failing or people don't want homes. That's not true. And I've been doing this work for a decade at this point. I've yet to find somebody who didn't want a place to call home.
That's right. That's correct. That's been my experience as well. Absolutely. And our last question is, what can our audience watching and listening today do to help make a difference in our city?
Well, that's a great way to end. That's a great last question. Because it is so important that each of us understand that we can play a role and that our individual voices and our energy and our resources are important. There is a website we've established at the city called, and I'll say it, and maybe we could put it in the chat box as well. AustinTexas.gov, and let me see It is /homelessness, and there you will see a lot of resources, as well as a Austin How to Help campaign. So that and that's a great place to start. A great place to sort of understand the sort of issues around homelessness, what has occurred, and what the city and ECHO and other partners are doing, and how you could plug in and help is a great question. And I hope that the audience understands again that that everyone has a role to play, and it's not just giving money. I will say though, just one plug, that helping is not going to an encampment and leaving a couch or a mattress, right? So so what we find and what we found is that illegal dumping is something that we really want to talk honestly about as well, and that is probably the worst way to help, because one of the worst ways to help, because what it creates is this perception that these encampments are getting out of hand, and it creates all kinds of other challenges. So don't go to an encampment and donate furniture. Please visit our website and understand what the campaign is, what we are looking for help on. The point in time count is a great way to volunteer every year to do a census of those who are experiencing homelessness. So educate yourselves, and then go to our website and educate yourselves more and plug in that way. So
I would like to add to what Chris just said. As you educate yourselves and what you have learned and are learning, have courageous conversations with people who express misconceptions, because a lot of it is just talking it out and having people understand and have a better understanding of the reality. Or call any of us on this panel, and we'll be glad to have a conversation with you to help you have a better understanding of what we're doing and why this has happened in our community. Anytime, give me a call. I'm willing to have that conversation, because it starts with you learning. And from learning, then you go, oh, okay, the light went off. Now I'll do this and I can do that. And as Chris said, there are various ways for you to volunteer, but we can also teach you on ways that are really not a good use of your time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add one more piece, and that is to engage your elected officials at every level. City, state, federal, have conversations, communicate that you believe ending homelessness is a priority in your community. We need support on every level, and probably, to be quite frank, more than ever. So please engage your electeds as well.
Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat room? Do I need to click on this?
We do, Adelita. They're in the Q&A. So if you click the Q&A in the top right.
Okay. All right, so what is the plan from the city for when the moratorium expires on September 30th? Did we lose Chris again? I think so.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Okay, let me go to another question. There was a quick mention about providing ways for homeless people to earn income by giving them jobs instead of free stuff all the time. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So Chris was speaking specifically about a city program, so I will not do injustice to that program since I'm not with the city. But I will say that there are a lot of providers in our community. Caritas has employment programming.
Yes.
Goodwill does. And speaking to a room full of community members, what our ask is for employers to be willing to work with folks still experiencing homelessness and find employment opportunities. But there are quite a few services geared at helping folks earn and increase their income. And we're always looking for employers who want to partner with us in that. And Adelita, you might want to add something there. But.
Well, absolutely. I will tell you this to the specific question, both having an employment program, because as I mentioned in the introduction, getting someone housed is just the first step. And then education and employment are keys to achieving that stability and maintaining a level of, I know we don't want to use the phrase self-sufficiency anymore, but it is handy right now, and achieving that level of self-care. But I will tell you, the free stuff is also helpful. Because if I've been living under a bridge forever and I don't have those things to be able to have the nonprofit organization or ECHO, whoever, besides the housing and the employment and the job training, to have opportunity to get things you need in your home until you can provide for it yourself is extremely helpful. And so both work. And that stuff is really where we talk about donations that we get from the community, because we can't do it by ourselves. Community volunteers and community giving back is extremely critical to all of us service providers. It's a partnership that we cannot do alone. So that would be an answer to that. I'll go on to another question. There was a question about what is the plan from the city for when the moratorium expires on September 30th?
Moratorium.
It didn't say more than that.
I'm assuming the eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
That'd be my assumption.
Say it again, Bree.
I'm assuming the eviction moratorium is what they're addressing.
Yeah. Well, I'll say two things, and I'll also speak to the protective lodges and the 350 or so individuals who are currently being housed in protective lodge due to COVID-19. In terms of the evictions, what the city is certainly doing is working really hard to push out rise funding associated with rental assistance. And so, for anyone who may not know about it and may be sort of tuned in, the city is providing assistance, I believe, for 2 or 3 months, and working directly with tenants to help provide that rental assistance. So please do take advantage of that funding. Go to our website you can even go to our homeless services website, which is what I mentioned before I was lost connection again, to find out more information about the rental assistance program. It is a part of a larger economic recovery effort, and a number of tranches of funding has gone out over the last few months. But certainly that rental assistance program is one way that I think the city's working to make sure that we are providing support where we can to tenants who may be facing eviction.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I think we have about 3 minutes left, so let's try and take one more question. The continuum of care and the housing policies are confusing for people that are unfamiliar with the process. What is the best way to educate ourselves and then get involved?
I mean, I would direct folks back to the city website that Chris shared, austintexas.gov, I think /homelessness. But to also acknowledge, yes, it is confusing and you're not alone in that. We as a community, again, in collaboration with the city, are actually working to kind of address that messaging and how can we, if folks want to be educated and involved, we will absolutely want to create an avenue and a path for that. But the continuum of care essentially refers to this entire network. It's the city, it's Caritas, it's Front Steps, it's all of our shelters, our permanent housing programs, our outreach workers, it's the host team. It's this entire continuum that's moving in lockstep to address the homelessness crisis. But again, I think we've dropped the website in the chat, so I would definitely encourage folks to go check that out.
Okay. I think we're pretty much out of time. I want to just say an apology for all of the rest of you who had questions that we didn't have time to get to, but thank you for your interest. I want to applaud the Austin Young Chamber for doing this conference and for, again, you being involved in educating and partnering. There's so many ways to partner with us in the community. I would recommend that all of you who are participating go to the ECHO website. You're going to see a lot of wonderful data, a lot of wonderful information. Go to the website that Chris recommended in the city, because it would probably answer some of the other questions I still see on the screen that we can't get to today. I want to thank Bree and Chris for your input and your involvement today, your expertise. It is much appreciated that you were able to participate in this today. And then for all of you participants, thank you for joining us today. The last session is a networking event where you can join and meet other participants to discuss and brainstorm policies, future policy solutions for the topic of your choosing. And you can find that link if you go directly to the session located at the bottom of your screen. Thank you to everyone who participated. I enjoyed it. And again, thank you, Bree and Chris and the Austin Young Chamber. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.